Welcome to Handling Grief Through the Holiday Season, sponsored by the Compassionate Friends and Open to Hope Foundation. I'm Pat Loder, the Executive Director of the Compassionate Friends. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Gloria Horsley and Dr. Heidi Horsley, who will be presenting our webinar. Welcome, Gloria and Heidi.
Well, thanks, Pat. It's so great to be on this webinar today and know that we've got hundreds of people out there listening. It's pretty amazing, isn't it, Heidi?
It really is. The Internet is incredible. It really is a virtual support and community 24/7.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Well, we're sponsoring this show today in memory of our son, Heidi's brother, and my son, Scott, and also Pat's children, Stephen and Stephanie Loder. And we want to also say that this whole show is in memory of you out there and the loved ones that you have lost and are still in our hearts, and hopefully we can give you some tips and things that you can do over the holidays that will help you. Some of you may be familiar with Heidi and I. Heidi we do an internet radio show, and we have a foundation called Open to Hope, where we hope you will come to our site and visit us at opentohope.com. We've got about 350 radio shows. We have YouTubes. We have forums. What else do we have, Heidi? Articles. Lots going on. So we hope you'll visit our site and become part of our Open to Hope community. But today we want to talk to you a little bit about the holidays and handling the holidays.
So we're going to start out, this is Heidi, with talking about the holidays being a bittersweet time. And the thing about the holidays is the holidays bring back so many memories of our loved ones. I mean, it's kind of an assault to all of our senses. You hear songs, you smell smells, and all of this can be bittersweet, because it brings up a lot for us, and you never know when it's going to happen. Sometimes you don't have control over when these memories are going to hit you. I mean, I live in New York City, and you walk down the street in Manhattan, and you are absolutely barraged with holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah information. You smell things, people are singing, there's caroling, there's chestnuts roasting literally on the street. Everywhere you go, I mean, there was hundreds of Santas descending on New York City this weekend. As you know, Mom, my mother was in town.
Oh,
so we were
incredible.
at Grand Central.
We were at Grand Central Station, and there were, I don't know what they were doing, but there were like 300 Santa Clauses and elves around in the station.
All over the place. And while that's an amazing thing, and that can be a fun, wonderful thing, it can also bring back memories of times we had our children and our siblings in our lives, and they're no longer here.
And our spouse is playing Santa Claus, probably, you know. So it can be a tough time. And as Heidi, you know, you say that intellectually we know that that it's going to be a tough time. It still hurts.
Right, because, you know, people will always say, Mom, they said to me, I remember the first few years when I was feeling really sad that Scott wasn't here, and it was Christmas was so difficult because he loved Christmas so much, and it was such a big part of his life and my memories with him. And people would come up to me and they'd say, Heidi, you know, you should be happy. You should be like, because Scott would want that. He would want you to be happy, and he would want you to celebrate Christmas in a positive way, and he'd want you to have a positive holiday. And yes, intellectually I knew that. While my head knew he would want me to have a great time, sometimes our hearts take a while to catch up with our heads. And we might know that, but it takes a while. We still feel sad, even though we know that our loved ones would want us to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's a good time to talk a little bit about the tasks of the holidays, because it's a little different as time goes on, as the years go on, and there are certain things that we have to get through in the early part of grieving, and then it changes a little, and always changing. But that first year, Heidi, I remember, I was just, and I'm sure our audience out there, for those who are in this first year, are going through the motions. That's it. I mean, you are so frozen, so, you know, just trying to get through the day and going through those emotions. And the grief is really centered on the person you've lost and loved. You see him everywhere. You have those sighing respirations. You hear the sights or sounds or smells, and it's very, very tough. And sometimes you just want to pull the covers over your head, but as you say, Heidi, early on, if there are kids involved.
Right, right. I mean, if you have children, I work a lot with kids, and the biggest feedback I get from kids is, we love holidays. We love Hanukkah and Christmas, and we want to celebrate it. So even though it may be hard for the parents, and I understand that, sometimes we have to kind of put on our game face as parents and celebrate for our kids. Because I know when I was, what, Mom?
Go ahead.
Just that our kids, expect that, and they want it, and they don't want to be cheated out of having Christmas, etc.
Right, and one of the things you can do is that you can assign family members to help you. I remember it was, going to the mall was absolutely exhausting, and I have a friend who picked up my daughter with her daughter and went shopping. So you can ask people to do those kinds of things, or if there's little tiny kids, you can ask favorite relatives or friends to come and get them and help you. And maybe if you have a baby, you can have somebody hold the baby. You can ask people to do things, because you really do have to conserve that energy. And in the early, yeah, go ahead, Heidi.
I'm just thinking about all that. Scott was such an integral part of Christmas, because he was the only boy, and he was very athletic and strong, and so his job was to put up the Christmas tree and all the lights. And every year he did it, and sometimes the tree would fall on him and we'd be laughing because the stand would not be quite right. But he would sit there and struggle with it, and that was always his job. That's a big job. So when somebody dies, if their job was to put up the tree and hang all the lights outside, that's a huge, huge void. And I remember the first year, just every time I would look at the tree and the lights, thinking that he was no longer here. But getting people, like my mom just said, bringing people in to do those things is really important. After a lot.
And it is recommended early on that you go through the routine that you've done before. And, you would say, well, why would I want to do that? Why don't I just take off or, do something? There is a little risk with that, because if you do that, we had one woman on our Compassionate Friends chapter that went to Hawaii that first Christmas, and and just left the family and everybody. Well, come second year, later on, now she's got all the ornaments she's never opened. She's got all the things to have to go through, and it can make it a little bit difficult. So if it's your first year, you might want to think about just trudging through it. If it's your second year and you didn't kind of trudge through the first year, you might watch a little bit that you might get caught in a little more emotion than you thought you would. So, whatever you do, just think about.
I mean, I'm thinking of Christmas ornaments, and Christmas ornaments are so symbolic. And, I look at, and they all have, a lot of them have a meaning and a story, and some of them will have your children's and siblings' names on them, and their pictures. And opening those ornaments can be extremely emotional. I think it's one of the more emotional parts of the holiday, if somebody you loved has died. And all of a sudden, I remember opening Scott's green bulb. It still tugs at my heart to open it up and see how he wrote in big glitter letters, Scott, across that bulb. We would all put our own bulbs on the tree. It was kind of a ritual, and to have him not here, it's like, Mom, what do you do with those bulbs, and what do you do, the first year when you see that stuff? It's difficult.
It's tough, yeah. And let's move on to the next, which we call mid-tasks. And I would say that this is, as time moves on a little bit, maybe you are in your second year. The first year, your grief was centered on what you lost, the person you lost. The second grief year, it's centered on yourself. And that mid-task is very interesting, that sometimes you feel worse that second year, and it's very scary to feel worse. You may feel like you're feeling crazy or whatever, but it's a real interesting paradox, because the reason you're feeling worse is because you're getting better. It's because you can take in more, because you're settling in. It's a physical assault when you've had any kind of a loss. Your body is adjusting. You're able to take in more, so you're starting to realize, this is the life I'm going to have, and I'm not happy about it or whatever. But you're grieving for the one you lost the first year. The second year, you're kind of grieving for yourself. So
Right, and
emotions can be really strong.
I was just going to add to that that I remember feeling very abandoned by Scott, even though I know that's not a rational thought, but, you know, sometimes grief is not rational. Feeling very abandoned and like, how could he have left and done this to me and left me with this grieving family? I mean, he died in a car accident, but, you know, I just thought, this is not the life I've signed up for, and this is actually not the life I had planned or wanted. And that second year, the permanence of it really hit me.
Mm-hmm. So this might be some time that you make some modifications, and if you did trudge through the first year, if you didn't, you may be trudging through, you know, this holiday season. So you know, as I said, be prepared for whatever, but you might want to make a few changes. But remember, if you make changes, it might make some people in your family angry, because if you decide to do something different from what they think you should be doing, they might be a little bit upset. So I always say tell people early if you're going to make changes, and let them know. And the kids might not like it too, Heidi. They might want the same thing going with their cousins or whatever. Do you think?
Well, that's the hard part. You know, when you're dealing with a family, we all have to compromise, because someone might want something and someone might want something completely the opposite. So how do we find a middle ground? And where's the compromise in all this? I mean, our second year, we went to Hawaii, and luckily everyone in the family wanted to. And it was interesting, because I was really glad that we went to Hawaii and did something completely different and non-traditional, and something that wasn't about Scott. But the interesting part was, and he had never been to Hawaii with us, the interesting part that surprised me is that when we were in Hawaii, I was still constantly searching and looking for him. And every time I'd see somebody with blonde, wavy hair, I would expect it to be him, even though I knew that it couldn't be him.
Yeah.
So we do search for a long time.
Yeah, that yearning and searching is powerful. I remember having a stiff neck, you know, looking at, especially where they have been. It is kind of a relief sometimes to go somewhere where your spouse that's died or your parent or your child haven't been before.
Well, that's what I would have thought, but for me it actually didn't matter.
Yeah.
That he had never been there, which is surprising
to
to
me. It was more helpful. So yeah. So just goes to show it's different for everybody. Well, let's talk about the later tasks. So later, you're more in control of your emotions as time goes on. You've made it through the holidays. You've developed a routine. There's more energy. It's, say, your third year. But, you know, your friends and family want you to move on. They want you to move on means be who you were.
Yes, and have everything going back to being normal. And the reality is, my mom and I were always talking about the fact that we need to create a new normal. So you're never ever going to go back to the way things were before, because Scott's not in my life anymore. So how can it be back to normal? It's a new normal we're creating. And someone brought up something at one point when we did this webinar last time, which I really liked. I think it was on the webinar. They said, you know, we can create new routines and new rituals and a new normal and a new holiday, but we can also keep some of the things that we really loved from the past while our loved ones and Scott were still here.
I think that was in our Attached Tragedy Assistance Program that we did.
That was it,
Somebody
Mom.
was talking about that they wanted to keep the old traditions, and we're like, yeah, fine. You know.
Yes, you can keep some old ones and you can add a lot of new ones.
Yeah, and it might be something that you get around with the family and figure out what people like and what they think is important too. But remember, it's not unusual to be blindsided by reminders of your loved one during all the holidays. No matter how many years it's been, something might come up and bite you. And what we find is that it's not that we occasionally don't get caught into something, but you recover faster.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you don't want to get over them. I mean, you know, people say get over it. They say, you know, you need to move on. You need to get closure. How do you want to say our little closure thing that I like that Bob Niemeyer told us?
Yes, our friend Bob Niemeyer always says that closure is for bank accounts, not love accounts. And
Right.
What we want to get over is the pain. We don't want to get over the person. My mom and I are who we are today because Scott was in our lives. We would be completely different people had he never been in our lives. So we don't want to get over him. We just want to get over that really difficult pain that we have early on.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some holiday survival tips, Heidi, and get on with some of the ideas that we have that we think people can do.
Okay. Do you want me to take this?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So the holiday survival tips, one thing that we have said before, and we'll repeat it, is that people need to know as early as possible if you're not going to do your usual holiday activities. And sometimes it's hard to tell people because of their response. I mean, I know somebody that just wanted to not go to her in-laws because it was her brother's birthday, and the in-laws got really angry. I mean, he's no longer here, and it's his first birthday. He died. But the in-laws totally didn't understand. They didn't understand. So you're going to have some people that are amazing grief support, and you're going to have some people that don't have a clue. And you already know that probably, because you've all probably had experiences with people that don't understand grief and don't have a clue, and they just want you to show up regardless.
Right. And, you have to decide what you're going to do about that. I mean, if it's your spouse's family and your spouse wants to go, maybe you can modify it some way. If the kids want to go, you have to think about modifying. And like you said, Heidi, compromise is really important.
Mm-hmm. And I like the idea, Mom, and you say this a lot about taking a supportive friend or someone from the family to accompany you. You might want to do that. If you're
Absolutely.
anxious about going, bring someone that is a good support system.
Right, and good grief support. They're those, Heidi and I call them safe people. When you're grieving, particularly early on, you need to find safe people that you can be with that can, help you negotiate through things. So plan in advance how you're going to spend it and say no if you need to. And as I said, people are not going to be happy. We had a situation where someone wanted us to go to a wedding, fly 1,000 miles 3 months after Scott died, and we said no. And I will tell you, I don't know if we've ever been forgiven, but we just couldn't do it. So, we forgive ourselves. What can I say? Forgive yourself, and other people have to do what they do.
Yeah. Some other holiday survival tips are connecting with others. Really important to have connections and not to isolate yourself, because what happens when we don't connect? We feel like in some way we're not normal. What we're going through is abnormal. There's something wrong with us. Maybe we're going crazy. And the more that we reach out and connect with others, especially others that may have been there, like being on this webinar tonight is a great way of connecting. We start to realize, oh my gosh, what I'm going through is a normal thing. It's called grief. There's nothing wrong with me. I hurt so much because I loved so much. This is a normal way to feel.
Also connecting with others is, I recently had an email from someone who said that since their child died and it was their only child, they feel like their family doesn't understand and that they've been cut off from them and they're not inviting them out and that kind of thing. I think if you're feeling that way, you really ought to take a little inner look and see what you're bringing to the party. Why aren't people responding to you? I mean, families are not one big, hard, solid unit. There are some people in the family that would behave differently towards you. So you do have to make a little effort to connect, and it's not easy, but you do need to take an inner look if you're feeling cut off, or you need to find a community where you can start to ease in again. I know people who are parents with no living children who that can be difficult, and getting involved with Alive Alone and trying to connect with different groups or different things. Make a little effort to move out there until you start feeling safe and comfortable again.
It's really hard to make effort early on. So, yeah. I mean, I think that one of the ways you can make effort which takes the least amount of energy is to find people that have had loss that completely get it. Because I do think sometimes when you're the only one in the room that has had a loss, that maybe people don't get it, and maybe they're not cutting you any slack. And maybe they've just never been in your shoes, and they feel like, you've been grieving for whatever, a few weeks, it's the holiday. Put your grief on the shelf and come and be jolly or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. That's what I got when Scott died. No one had a clue. Yeah. No one had ever lost a brother at 20. They didn't understand it. And my friends had zero tolerance for me being anything but the life of the party. So, right. I really had to reach out to people that had been there and had the death of a family member, because honestly, my sorority sisters and my friends didn't understand, and they didn't cut me much slack. So
And unfortunately, some people end up with therapists, and I know you guys did because I was a therapist, and I thought everybody should go to a therapist. And what happened was you ended up with therapists who didn't understand grief and loss.
Well, that can happen too. Just because you're a therapist doesn't mean you're a good one. Seriously, goodness of fit, and goodness of fit is everything.
Right.
You know, for those out there that feel like they need therapy or they want therapy, you shop around until you find someone that really gets it.
Absolutely. And you can go to ADAC, Association of Death Educators, on the web, and you can find people that are versed in dealing with grief and loss. Or you can go to a hospice or a hospital, ask them who people are that you feel that can be helpful. So it's important to take a break, go for a walk. If you're having problems, if you're at dinner or whatever, you need to, I think it's a good idea to tell people, if you feel like you want to, if this resonates with you out there, you're going to go to dinner at the family, and you say to who, whoever's in charge there, if I get up and leave the table, you don't need to follow me. Just sometimes I'll need to take a little break, and I'll be back. So they can say to everyone, it's fine, don't worry, continue on with whatever activity's going on. So you need to.
And unless, Mom, you want people to come out and support, and maybe you're the type that doesn't want it, or maybe you're the type that would like people. You want people to follow you.
Yep.
Like
absolutely.
you said, to communicate what your needs are.
Yep, absolutely. Because if you don't, they will follow you, and sometimes that can be aggravating, and you feel like you have to go all the way home when maybe you could just go out and sit in the car for a few minutes and scream. Who knows? So. Anyway, so let's move on to finding a new normal. Well, I think it's important during the holidays to find a way to honor the memory of your loved one. I love that. Some of the things that we've heard about is decorating a wreath, putting, even some people do food on it, pomegranates, and you could put a banana or whatever, particularly with little kids, and maybe do their favorite thing on the wreath, or little dolls or ornaments or things that
Well, I was thinking, okay, so you take a wreath, and everybody thinks about, let's go out, let's go and buy things or get things which Scott would have loved, which your children out there who are listening and your siblings would have loved. Go and buy them. I would put a Twix bar on that wreath for Scott because it was his favorite candy bar. I would put anything New York Jets, because he was all about the New York Jets. Yay, they just won, by the way. So yeah, I would put things, anything athletic. He was, into baseball and on the football team and the baseball team. He would love all that, and stick things on the wreath that symbolize that person and hang it on the door or hang it somewhere. I think that's a really fun idea.
Yeah, so we have a Christmas ornament that Scott put his name on, and we make a big deal out of that. That's the last ornament that sits out off of the tree, and then we make a little ritual of hanging it on the tree. And it's fun because it's been a long time, and we have grandkids, and it makes them know who Scott was, too. So.
Well, and I love it because sometimes I'll go in your living room, and the tree will be decorated, but Scott's bulb will be sitting there next to the couch, and I know that you're waiting. And so I'll see it just sitting there, and I like that reminder of, it being there and then having it being the last thing that's put on the tree.
Mm-hmm. And I like displaying pictures, but we always say if you've got kids, don't do more pictures of the person who died than you have of the living kids, because they count them, right, Heidi?
Around the house, yes. If you have a bunch of pictures around the house of your children that have died, and you have quite a few, which is a normal thing, that's fine. However, if you don't have that many of your children that are living, that creates a problem. I facilitate sibling groups all the time and just did one, and the siblings brought it up again. They say, my parents have like 20 pictures of Ted, and they only have one of me. So to think about that, to make sure that they're, displayed as much as your child that died, I think it's really important to do.
And lighting a candle is always good. We just, finished the Compassionate Friends candle lighting last night, which was amazing. And so Heidi and I did our Open to Hope radio that you'll be able to go on to opentohope.com on the day before Christmas, on the Thursday. I think Christmas must be on Friday, right, Heidi? Is that right?
I have no idea what day is
I'm not
Christmas
sure,
now.
but on Thursday, the Thursday before Christmas, you will be able to go on our site and hit.
Mom, it's on Sunday. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, okay. So Thursday, well, you can start on Thursday, or Friday, or Saturday, or Sunday. We have a very special radio show, and it's with Alan Peterson. I know a lot of you know him. And he sings Tonight I Light This Candle. And what Heidi and I did was we did a radio show with him where we got candles and we lit those candles, and Alan sang Tonight I Light This Candle. So you will be able to do your own candle lighting ceremony with Alan and Heidi and me. And the beautiful thing about the internet is you'll be able to turn your computer off. You'll be able to re-listen to the song and join us on a special holiday candle lighting, and please let people know about that. I mean, you could even sit around with family members, even at Christmas or whatever, and play the show and have Alan singing. So I think candles are amazing. I love looking into that light. Don't you, Heidi?
I do too, because, you know, as we always say, compassionate friends, their light shines on, and it always will. And like you said, the candle really symbolizes that. And I loved that radio show. It was a pre-record, but, you know, I thought it was kind of hokey, and I was like, okay, I'm going to light this candle as Alan's singing. It was really powerful. So it's a great show to kind of pay tribute to the people in your life that are no longer with you.
Absolutely, and not just for kids, for everybody is out there. My brother died this year. I think I'm going to listen to the show again and light a candle with Alan's music. It's really neat. And the next thing is making a toast. You know, if you're going to go to a Christmas event or party, people are so disappointed. I'm sure you've been disappointed out there when they don't mention your family member, your spouse, your parent, your child, whatever, and just kind of things go on. So what I say is plan ahead and have somebody give a toast. Ask someone in advance if they will toast your loved one that has died, because that way you will know, that it will happen, and people will love it. And I also love having a bowl there where people they can email you memories or whatever, and you can put them on a piece of paper and put them in a bowl or something, and then little kids particularly love it. They can draw something and read a happy event about that person that died, or something very special that you remember about them. And funny is always good, right?
Absolutely. Mom, can I say something else about the toast?
Yes.
I would just say that, or you can do it yourself, and it doesn't have to be elaborate if you're not emotionally in the mood. I just raise a glass and I say, here's to Scott. That's all I say sometimes, because it's all I feel like saying. But for me, the worst thing that can ever happen is for me to go to a holiday event and Scott is the 500-pound elephant in the room that nobody's talking about, and that, for some reason, maybe they think that if they don't talk about him, I'll forget he ever existed. I don't know what people are thinking. Maybe they think it'll make me too sad, but actually it makes me too sad when no one brings him up. So to just to take responsibility yourselves to bring up that person. For me, it gives me peace of mind to know that I put his name out in the air and that he lived, and that's what I want to celebrate, the fact that he lived, and a tribute and a toast does that for me.
Yeah, and that reminds me, put your loved one's name out there. Say, I miss John, or I miss Sue, or I miss whatever, and don't expect anybody to respond. Everybody hears, and you don't really need a response to that. Don't be afraid to put it out in the holiday season.
And I love the idea of the happy and funny memories, because if you sit around the table and say to everyone, does anyone have any funny memories of Scott, or does anyone have any funny memories of Billy or Susie, etc., people are more apt to talk, because they're knowing that you're going to go into a positive place. And it's really fun to hear stories that'll make us laugh. So it's kind of fun to get the conversation started that way.
Mm-hmm. And another idea is to make your loved one's favorite dish. I was hearing today on the radio, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, our Supreme Court Justice, her husband died, and he was a chef. And all of the Supreme Court Justices' wives have done a cookbook with their favorite recipes in honor of him.
Oh, that's neat. I love it. That's a great idea.
It's funny because they said they didn't know how much work it was going to be, but you could make your favorite loved one's dish, or you could create some kind of a cookbook for them, or the favorite things they liked. It could be really kind of a fun thing to do. And then again, happy, funny memories are an important thing. Well, Heidi, do you want to talk a little bit about our book that we've just had come out? And I want to say that all of the Compassionate Friends chapters are going to be receiving a book, of our holiday book.
Okay, so we've got 2 new books out. One is Open to Hope, Inspirational Stories of Healing After Loss, and then the one that you may be more interested in is Open to Hope, or as interested, Inspirational Stories for Handling the Holidays After Loss. And the contributing authors on our website have written, it's kind of like a chicken soup for the soul. They've written little excerpts of how to find hope again after loss and told their own little stories in both of these books. They're very easy reads. You don't have to read them straight through. You can just put them down. And you can get them on Amazon ebooks or on the opentohope.com website.
And some of you might remember Ann Hood has been Compassionate Friends. She writes a wonderful foreword for the Christmas book, and then the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation has written a wonderful foreword for the Inspirational Stories of Healing After Loss, and 100% of the proceeds go to the Open to Hope Foundation for helping people find hope after loss. So we hope those books will be helpful to you. So
okay, Mom.
Okay, so we're hoping that you'll have a happy holiday season. And Heidi, you love quotes on our next one.
Yes, I do. I always like to end things with a quote. And so the quote I want to leave you with tonight is, may you have a healing holiday season. We will never forget our loved ones, as they will always be in our hearts. The holidays are a time that our memories will continue to connect us with those who have made us who we are today. May you have peace during the holidays, and may thoughts and memories of the ones that you have loved and lost sustain you even in your darkest days.
And we would like to say that we hope that you will give us some questions now. And I think we're hoping that this gets recorded and it will be on the internet, so you'll be able to listen to it again and tell your friends about it. And we are very happy to be on. And Heidi, our last comment and last slide is our idea that at the Open to Hope Foundation, we offer you the chance to lean on our hope until you find your own. So let's see if people out there have any questions they'd like to ask.
Or comments, or we'd love to hear from our audience. Please feel free.
Absolutely. And I have one here from June, and it says, my mother-in-law is planning on having us come for Christmas dinner. Our daughter died after a long struggle with leukemia, and I don't think I can do it. Wow. Any suggestions? Wow, what do you think, Heidi?
Her mother-in-law her daughter died, and the mother-in-law wants to come for a dinner?
No, our mother-in-law is planning on having us come for dinner, which I assume she has every year. That's our example. You know, we were talking about it earlier of how tough it is if, you know, if you've had a tradition, if you've gone to the mother-in-laws. In-laws can be a difficult thing. I'll have to tell you, everyone out there, that I actually wrote a book on in-laws at one time, not about grief and loss, but the person who has the most power in this family is the spouse, who it is his mother. And, you know, that's the person that I would hope in this situation, and as a husband, would talk to someone in the family. He may not talk directly to his mother. He may talk to his dad. But I think the biological person really has to intercede in these situations. But also, for June, you know, you may go for a shorter time and not stay as long. Let have your husband and kids go. You know, take a look at the situation. Compromise, right, Heidi?
Yes, and also I would say to June, if your mother-in-law gets this information, I would think of a sandwich approach. And a sandwich approach is when we want to give someone information that they may not want to hear, we start off saying something positive, like, you know, we absolutely have loved in the past going to your house, and it's been such a wonderful, you've been such a wonderful mother-in-law, if that is the case. However, this year it's going to be, so that's the top, that's the positive, and then the middle is, however, this year it's going to be really, really hard for us because we've had this loss and it's been very difficult. And then next is the positive again. Think of a sandwich. But thank you so much for inviting us, and in the future we look forward to spending some positive, you know, some good times with you in future holidays or whatever. It's easier for people to hear information if it's given in that way.
Absolutely. And then we've got another one here, Heidi, and this is kind of interesting because some of our most popular shows are about substance abuse and you know, children dying of an overdose, accidental or whatever. And we've got one from Rex here. And Rex says, my parents are divorced, and they are very upset because my brother died 6 months ago of an overdose. And I don't know, you know, how I am going to deal with the holidays, where I will go, because they both want me at their home. So Rex, a tough situation with an overdose. There's a lot going on. There's only so much you can do, don't you think, Heidi? I mean, you can be there. You can let people know when you're going to come. I think you've got to be really clear with your parents about when you're going to, where you're going to be when.
And it sounds like they both want him there, so I would divide my time equally.
Right. Oh, that's a good point.
So that neither one feels like he's getting more of Rex's time. We neither parent. And divide your time, and we got to set our boundaries, unfortunately, sometimes. If you're being pulled, you can't duplicate yourself, Rex. I wish you could.
Right, exactly.
It is difficult, and the first holidays were really hard. My heart goes out to Rex as a bereaved sibling because, you know, you've got two grieving parents, and you're being pulled in two different directions, and your brother's no longer there. So
right.
they probably want to see you even more.
When you've got a sibling who substance abuses, there's a lot of energy that goes their direction, and now you're it. Right.
So that's a lot of pressure for the surviving siblings to fill all those roles and all those voids. And there's some roles and voids we can fill, and there's some that will never be filled. So.
And you kind of just have to do your best, don't you?
Absolutely. And I would say to June also, she doesn't need to go to the mother-in-law if she doesn't want to. But like you said, to find safe people to tell people that to. And Rex is the other one. If you really feel like you can't go, find a way to tell your parents in a way that they can hear it.
Yeah, and one of the problems with teens, Heidi, is he probably would like to go with his friends, too.
If Rex is a teen, is he a teen?
I don't know. He doesn't say. He said they're both upset and divorced, so I would guess he's maybe college age or something, but he's still, and their girlfriends involved, and all sorts of going-ons when you've got...
Oh, I've got a good idea, Mom. Rex maybe can bring a friend.
Oh, good idea. Oh, I like that. Friends can take the heat off.
Yeah.
I think maybe parents will behave better when they have friends with them.
It might be helpful to have a friend there.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a lot. It's a lot for Rex because, you know, what happens is when you know, we've separated and individuated and kind of moved out of the family system a lot of times, and then when you have the death of a sibling, your parents pull you back in, and you feel like you really need to be there for your parents. We really worry about our parents, so I understand why Rex is concerned about being there for both parents.
Absolutely, and people have friends that come in. You had John, I mean, what's his name, that came in and got a picture, George, and helped you.
George Kavanaugh. He was amazing.
And so friends will come in, not all of them. I mean, one of the problems for everybody's teens out there during the holidays is that some friends are not even going to want their kids to come to parties. So that can be a tough situation. Well, Heidi, I think it's been a great seminar, and I want to webinar, and I want to thank Compassionate Friends for partnering with us on doing this, and want to thank everybody for being on, and wishing you all a successful and a safe holiday, and for those who are early on in grief, hang in there. You know, that's about what you can do right now, and get some help, and things do get better, right, Heidi?
Yes, even though sometimes it may not feel like that initially. You can find hope again eventually, and you will find hope again. And although my brother is not with me and my cousin is no longer here as well, they both died together, they're forever in our hearts. They're forever in my memory, and I'll never forget them. So, you know, may the memories of your loved ones give you peace this holiday season.
Absolutely. And Pat Loder, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Pat.
both.
It's been wonderful being on with you today, and a happy holiday to you.
Happy holiday to both of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.